this is Marching for History, and this is my presidential tier list for President's Day. I hope everyone enjoys. Just a quick reminder before this starts that this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that my opinion is better than yours or that mine is absolute facts, but just keep the comment section civil. And running a little late today, so I might have to speed run through some of this, but yeah, just keep everything civil. Remember, it's just my opinion. You guys can have your own opinions, and maybe my opinions might seem a little crazy to you, but it's okay. I do encourage discussion in my comment section. Also, I'm sorry for the popping up ads, but yeah, just keep the comment section civil, and please note that I didn't really pay for any tier lists, so that's why there's like some pop-up ads on here. So sorry for any distractions during the video. Okay. This is my presidential tier list, so I will be ranking modern presidents, every single president starting from Washington, so here we go. So, Washington, I'd say, is one of those, one of those presidents that definitely deserves the S tier ranking. I mean, father of our country, he made the Constitution, he signed the Constitution, he helped make it, but I think that a big part of Washington is that he decided to step down and he didn't seize power like what many other revolutions like Napoleon did in the past or did in that time, but instead he just walked away after 8 years and set a precedent for the president, and I think that's like the biggest success of his presidency. I think that's what puts him to S tier. Second, we have John Adams. Have been pretty critical of John Adams in the past, especially in my 10 worst presidents of all time video. So I will be giving John Adams some grace after I've learned some more things about him and I've read a bit more about him. He's not a horrible president. It's just my big complaint is the Alien and Sedition Act. So I think that I'd put Adams as maybe a B. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him. So many accomplishments, but then again, you got to remember, like, the Alien and Sedition Acts were something that were really horrible that Adams did. So third, we got TJ, Thomas Jefferson. He did a lot of great things. He made the Declaration of Independence. He did the Louisiana Purchase. He expanded territory in the U.S. He didn't veto a single bill. He did a lot. He didn't really do many executive orders. Very libertarian guy, very enlightened guy. Of course, the character aspects of Jefferson are hard to look over, especially for me. However, this is like an honest review of the presidents here, so I think that I will put him in an A tier despite his character being extremely flawed. But yeah, we'll move on to James Madison. I think Madison's like a B, but a lot higher than what's his name, John Adams, because I mean he won the he didn't win, but he fought the War of 1812. He got a lot of documents out of the White House. He secured kind of a second independence war, even though no one really won the War of 1812 when you really think about it. But he was a very good president. Bill of Rights, Constitution. I like Madison. So I'll elevate him up to a B, a little bit ahead of Adams. So my next one is James Monroe. A lot of prosperity under him, the era of good feelings. Monroe Doctrine, trying to keep Europeans out of the Americas. So yeah, I think that Monroe definitely gets maybe an A tier, maybe like a late A tier. I'll see how it shakes over later for a lot of new presidents and see if we're gonna have to have new ones. John Quincy Adams, one of the big people that I think that I debate a lot in my head about because he was very unpopular for his time, but a lot of stuff he was pushing for is actually pretty good. Not great economically, but some of the stuff he pushed for, like against slavery, Native American rights, stuff that's very, very unpopular in the past, but very, very popular for me and for now. So I think that John Quincy maybe is a little bit behind his father, maybe a little ahead. In the B tier, very good president. I can't elevate to him an A or S tier. I think that's just kind of an elite status. However, both the Johns will be together in this. Sorry, my screen recording went out for a second. But in this ranking. Andrew Jackson now. So I've actually talked about Jackson before, my worst presidents of all time video, and I got a lot of slack for that in the comments. It was actually just kind of one dude. He was getting really mad about me. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Andrew Jackson. Super authoritarian dude, the Trail of Tears, Indian removal, horrible policies. A lot of his economic policies too caused the Panic of 1837. I don't think he's really an all-around good president at all. I mean, brave for War of 1812, that was amazing, but I really don't think that he deserves any credit for pretty much anything. Yeah, I'm gonna put Jackson pretty bad in D tier. Not a very good president in my book. Next we got Martin Van Buren, kind of a mediocre guy. Didn't do too much. I mean, when I think of Martin Van Buren, kind of think he was the first president born when the United States was a country. Of course, I think that funky hairdo. A lot of his policies were kind of very pro Andrew Jackson. They didn't really do very much, and he only served 4 years. I think he was kind of mediocre. I'll put him in C. I cannot live with myself if I put him at B tier. William Henry Harrison's gonna be our first and only NA tier, just because, I mean, the guy was in there for presidency for 32 days. He didn't do much. He was sick for most of it. Of course, he had horrible Vice President John Tyler. But Henry Harrison, he was also old Tippecanoe. He fought Tecumseh in the War of 1812. In the Indian War. So, yeah, he was a general beforehand, but he really did not do anything as president. No executive orders, nothing. So, yeah, he gets an NA because really we never got to see his presidency. Next is John Tyler. I'm not a big fan of John Tyler. Very pro-slavery guy. Of course, when we get into this era of American history that we're kind of in for next, guys, we are really talking about the biggest issue right now is slavery, and this kind of slate we have right here. I think you can see that. What we're really talking about is slavery right now, and Tyler was very pro-slavery himself. Actually, he was the only president to be buried under a flag that was not the American flag, under a Confederate flag. But for him and trying to expand slavery and all that, I think that I'm going to have to put him in a C, D tier position. I think that's where I'll stay unless I kind of get reminded of other presidents I severely dislike that might replace him and put him up to C. But yeah, that's where our good old friend John Tyler is for now, hanging out with Andrew Jackson. Next we have Polk. James K. Polk. You could say to argue a lot of things for Polk. He was an imperialist, he was an expansionist, horrible things, but he did do a lot of good for the country, so he's kind of that middling tier. I am looking at this as an idealistic standpoint too. Also what's good for the nation, so I think that balanced out for the great things he did, but also the horrible things he did. So I think I'm going to put him, no, not NA. I think I'm going to put him B, maybe C tier. He might move up to B. Once again, I'll keep changing this tier list as we go out. It's kind of new right now. We only have a few guys up here, but yeah. He'll stay there. Polk will stay in C tier for now, but he might get elevated to B tier. There's no way he will go down to D tier. Zachary Taylor's next. Didn't have a lot during his presidency. Veteran, fought in the Mexican-American War. He was pretty anti-slavery actually too. He was part of the Whig Party. I think he did own some slaves, but fact check me that in the comments. I'm not a big Zachary Taylor guy. I'm more like I think like 20th century kind of presidential guy. So I don't know a lot about him, but I know he died pretty early in office, and he was a veteran. So I think that he does not deserve to be. I think he in D tier. I think he deserves to be like early C tier just because he didn't do much, but right after Polk, because Polk did quite a lot. And once again, sorry for all the pop-up ads. This is outrageous. Next, we got Millard Fillmore, Fugitive Slave Act, Compromise of 1850. I'm just not, or maybe it was the Missouri Compromise. Sorry, a little rusty on this part of history, but once again, not an expert, just my opinion. But just the Fugitive Slave Act alone, I think, puts him in a D tier for me. I don't like Millard Fillmore. He didn't do much other than that. I think that the Fugitive Slave Act is hypocritical. It's unconstitutional. It's just immoral, and especially when they're talking about states' rights in the South. But of course, they didn't really care about states' rights. They just cared about expanding slavery. But yeah, not a big fan of Millard Fillmore. Just let the pro-slavery people kind of walk over him. We got to our next guy, who was even worse, and it's going to be our first F-tier president, Franklin Pierce. Not going to waste time any there saying that he is an F-tier president. Horrible president. Kansas-Nebraska Act leading to bleeding Kansas was horrible. Very pro-slavery guy. He was a dough-face. I don't think I have to say anymore. He was just really, really horrible president. Just kind of kicked the can down the road in terms of the slavery issue, and that's going to be for one more guy on the list. Then we'll get to one of our next S-tier presidents, but James Buchanan, F. Even worse than good old Franklin Pierce. He really just sat back and did nothing when the South seceded right before the Civil War, and kind of let it go on to Lincoln as his responsibility. That makes him one of the worst presidents of all time. Maybe the worst. I mean, we still got a couple guys coming up. But yeah, that makes him particularly hated by me. I think he's one of the worst presidents of all time for not taking action, just kind of letting it go to Lincoln. He was horrible. There's no real discussion about that. However, let's get to the fun stuff. We got Lincoln here, who's definitely going to be an S tier, maybe even a little ahead of Washington. Led the country during the Civil War. Amazing leadership. Outlines the made the Emancipation Proclamation, even start to try to black voting rights. Of course, it was cut short with assassination. Amazing president, rallied the country together during the Civil War, led us straight through it. I don't agree with some stuff like getting rid of habeas corpus and violation of free speech, but I think that he makes up for that, and that's why I will put Lincoln in S tier. Great president. Next, his vice president was not a good president. In fact, our next F-tier president, Andrew Johnson, I hate him because he really, I know hate's a strong word, but I really do not like him. Andrew Johnson really just reeled back a lot of that racial progress with, he supported the Ku Klux Klan, he went against a lot of black voting rights, and then he got impeached for disobeying Congress. First president to be impeached, horrible with race relations. He was just a terrible president, and really that's probably one of the biggest failures of Lincoln, and that's picking such a horrible vice president. But now we're kind of going to the post-Civil War era presidents. Well, Andrew Johnson kind of was, but anyway, I digress. We got Ulysses S. Grant, great general, great historical figure, one of my favorites. Grant, I think he gets a bad rap, especially in the myths of the Lost Cause. He wasn't a drunk, and I think he just gets a lot of he gets flagged for a lot of corruption. Bruce, people he trusted that were more corrupt than him. Fought against the KKK. Of course, he did let corruption go under his watch. That cannot be denied, which kind of stops him from going to the S tier. But I think he goes a little bit ahead of Monroe. I'm a fan of Grant. Great general, great president. So I'm gonna put that up there. Oh, these ads. Rutherford Hayes, D. Horrible president. He got rid of Reconstruction, which was a big success of Lincoln and Grant's presidencies, which would I think would have made the Civil Rights Acts happen a lot sooner. He reversed tons of racial progress in history, put on a little pressure to win the election compared to, that's how he was only allowed to win the election if he got rid of Reconstruction, but still, I'm still going to put him there because he really didn't do much either. So yeah, he's just not a good president in my eyes, and that's how I'm going to just view him. So next one, we got Grover Cleveland. Poor Cleveland got his presidency cut short with his assassin's bullet. Really progressive guy, would have done so many good things. I think he goes a little behind Adams. He really had such a high ceiling, I think, to be a great president. That's what's very sad. He shot early, and actually in the presence of Lincoln's son, Todd Lincoln, which is very sad. But yeah, I think Cleveland could have been an amazing. Oh my God, did I say Cleveland? Sorry, I meant I meant James Garfield. Just for that to be cleared up, Garfield I think is actually from Cleveland, but sorry, that's a big mistake on me. I just realized that. But yeah, Garfield could have been a great president. A lot of progress. So yeah, wish he would have been president longer. Chester A. Arthur. I feel like he's kind of a mid-president. Didn't do too much in terms of progress. So I think we're really helping the country. So I think he goes in C tier. Just because that's like the mediocre president section. Or presidents I'm confused about, like Polk. Cleveland. He brought a lot of progress to the nation. A lot of reforms. Child labor, I believe. And he also was the first non-consecutive president to have 2 terms. So I think Cleveland will get B tier. Sorry. Ahead of Garfield. Ahead of Adams. Behind John Quincy. Maybe a little ahead. I think Cleveland was a great president. He was like the only Democrat in a big era of Republican politics. That's really interesting to me, even though he's kind of more progressive when I'd say the Democratic Party was a bit more conservative back then, despite it being progressive now. So kind of an interesting guy. Benjamin Harrison, I mean, he was okay. I think he's one of those mediocre presidents. I'm not going to touch up with him much just to save really fun presidents more time. But William McKinley is a president, much like Polk, that I'm confused about. I think I'll put him a little ahead of Adams. Expanded the country, Spanish-American War. However, what keeps him away is the Philippine-American War. He committed so many atrocities. And a lot of his corruption in his administration with the Gilded Age. However, the Spanish-American War was a big success in liberating Cuba and helping America. So I'll give him a little higher there. Also, great VP, Theodore Roosevelt. And that's where we're going to go next. So Theodore Roosevelt is my favorite president. He's so inspirational. I think he did a lot for his country. He broke up trust with trust-busting campaign. He made the Food Inspection Act, the Meat Inspection Act. He also made the FDA. He made national parks. The income tax, I think, was a big accomplishment. So a lot of the progressive politics of the day. He was the first person to have a meal with an African-American. Huge progress. Made a lot of appointments of African Americans in his government, which I think is like a lot of racial progress, especially for Roosevelt's time. So I think that also a little bit biasy here as my favorite president. Also, of course, you can see my politics with why I like Roosevelt for what he did. A lot of biasy. I love Roosevelt. That's why I think I might put him as number 1, S tier. Great president. However, in no way am I saying that he is number 1. So I'm going to take a quick intermission right here. Okay, we're back to the tier list after a quick intermission right after my favorite president, Theodore Roosevelt, which after this we have, these ads, don't buy anything they say, but we have William Howard Taft, the only Supreme Court justice to be president. I think that Taft is a very good president, a lot of racial justice, kind of a realist compared to Roosevelt's idealist. He definitely was very progressive, but I think he was more like hey, let's assess the situation kind of guy. I like Taft. I think he did good. I think I put him a little ahead of Cleveland, right behind Madison. I feel that's a good place for Taft. Get on the raft of Taft and B, and go to the next one. Woodrow Wilson is one of my least favorite presidents of all time. So I actually do like a lot of his policies, the left-wing agenda he had, like the income tax, child labor, and then women's suffrage were big things that I really liked about his presidency. However, other than that, he kind of ruled as an authoritarian figure, suppressing free speech during World War I. A lot of racism on Wilson's part, especially growing up in Georgia, too, during the Civil War. He screened The Birth of a Nation at a White House, which is a very white supremacist film, and he really undid a lot of the justice and racial progress that Roosevelt and Taft had built, and kind of sent the country back. He brought the KKK back from after Grant destroyed them after years of them being underground. I just really, and like all the free speech stuff, like authoritarian figure during World War I just cannot get past all of that, and that's gonna make him in my F tier. Not the worst president of all time, but he's definitely in that top 5 category. Next one is another really bad president, Warren G. Harding. Really, really, really corrupt. Popular though, but he was really corrupt guy. Didn't really do anything. He kind of more so liked to spend time with his wealthy buddies, and I think for that, just kind of letting the country go on its own path, I think that makes him one of the worst presidents of all time, especially in that F tier. And I think that's a great place for him. I don't like Harding. I think he's a horrible president, but that's where Harding will go in my tier list. 4 fourths for now. We'll see. Maybe that might be it, but we'll check later. So yeah, Harding, horrible president, super corrupt, really didn't do anything. Pretty stupid too. So yeah, that's why it's pretty low. Next we got Calvin Coolidge. I like Calvin Coolidge. I think he was very good president, very laid back. He kind of was more like a caretaker of the presidency and kind of believed in staying back and just coming to stop crises. I think he's a very level-headed person. I like his attitude. Disagree with some of his policies, but I'm a big fan of Calvin Coolidge. I think that gets him an 8 tier. Actually, I think I might put him ahead of Jefferson. Yeah, I think I'll put him ahead of Jefferson. I like Cal. Next is Hoover, another very bad president. Worse than Jackson? Yeah, I think he's worse than Jackson. But Hoover, really a lot of his policies, like the House Moot Tariff Act and all those other things, really spearheaded the Depression. Didn't do much, didn't interfere with the economy to stop the Depression. I think he's responsible for the Depression. Hoover doesn't get farther down this list because I do actually really like some of his humanitarian aid after World War II. After World War II, where he helped out a lot of Europeans, like on a character standpoint, Hoover is great, but on a president standpoint, he was very bad. Next, we got our next S tier, one of my favorites, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Great president, led the country during World War II. Also, got us out of the Great Depression with his New Deal. Single-handedly with that New Deal, he brought us out of the Depression. And, yeah, just an amazing president. Made the UN. He really an influential figure that I think that really shaped how the 20th century would turn out in the future. That's why I think they used in the S tier. Awesome president. I really like him. Harry Truman is a guy who gets some slack. I have always liked Harry Truman. He did drop the bomb, which was a big upset about his presidency. However, I respect him for his NATO. The Marshall Plan was huge in reshaping Europe and stopping the spread of communism. I also liked him building up the United Nations a lot. That was pretty big. Desegregating the military. The fair deal was all amazing. Of course, Korea got a little slippery at the end, but I think that Truman's overall a pretty good president. And, yeah, I would put him in the S tier as one of the greatest presidents of all time. So next, I think Eisenhower, and we're really getting kind of a chain of really good presidents. Do I put him in S tier or A tier? Whatever. I'll put Eisenhower in S tier. So yeah, Eisenhower was a great general in D-Day. That's why we beat the Germans in World War II, I think, because of his landings. Brilliant general. And he really, as president, he did a lot of great things. Like he made the interstate highway system. He also brought a lot of reforms. He sent troops to Little Rock in Arkansas. So yeah, I've always liked Dwight Eisenhower. Some shady CIA stuff going in behind the scenes, but I'll keep Eisenhower on my tier lists. And S tier, I really like him. Then of course we have next is John F. Kennedy. I think will be our last S tier president, the last person I think is deserving of that title. Kennedy was amazing. A lot of his reforms, like USAID, AID, education reforms, but also especially his handling the Cuban Missile Crisis. Outstanding leadership. I think he's the only guy that could have led us through that moment in time, especially in that situation. His diplomacy was great, kept his cool. I think that's what cements himself in the S tier of presidents. I wouldn't say he's one of the great, top 3, but he's definitely good. Yeah, I definitely put Kennedy high. I'm a Kennedy fan. Wait, what just happened? Okay, Lyndon Johnson's next. A guy that kind of split about. I think he gets B tier, maybe C tier. Wait, not T tier. A little ahead of Adams, behind McKinley. So I think that Lyndon Johnson really did a lot of great social reforms, especially with the Civil Rights Acts. Amazing. Things that what he got caught up with was Vietnam. Terrible leadership of Vietnam. Really not good. The whole Vietnam War was really a scam. I think he did really bad in that sense. The Civil Rights Acts were very good. The War on Poverty was very good, and that's why he gets a B tier. But I think that what really drags him down from it, the S and A tier, is just Vietnam. His handling was terrible. Next, we got Richard Nixon. So Nixon did a lot of great things. He opened up trade with the Chinese. Well, that's kind of a mixed bag, but he ended Vietnam. He made the Environmental Protection Agency and a lot of other things that I think are really notable. However, I think that I cannot get by Watergate, which makes him one of the worst presidents ever. He did, all of his accomplishments were not major enough to have them to uphold his reputation. And I think that that's what makes him a D tier president. Just Watergate was terrible. And I think that's what drags Nixon all the way to the bottom to D. So, yeah, just a warning before we get into these modern presidents that are more controversial. Just please keep the comment section civil, especially with this part. And remember, that's just my opinion, and you guys can have different opinions too. But here, let's jump in to Gerald Ford. A kind of mediocre guy. He did some good things. I don't think he was a bad person. I think he was a good person, but it's not really. I think I'll put him in C tier, though, behind Garfield, behind Taylor. Because I think that his pardoning of Nixon was very autocratic. It was very unjust, and I think that's what brings him down, because he really didn't do too much in that respect. I don't know. I'm not like a presidential historian. I can't speak on that. I enjoy learning about the presidents, but I don't think that Ford deserves a high praise. So next is Jimmy Carter, who maybe I'll put him top C, behind Polk a little bit. So I think Carter is definitely more of a mediocre president, but I do like a lot of stuff, like the Camp David Accords, Iran hostage crisis. Recently noticed that he actually was the person that brought the hostages home. Just should have been a lot earlier. Weak economy. However, it kind of pains me to put him in C tier just because Jimmy Carter, person, was such a great person. Habitat for Humanity. I think he's one of our most moral and one of our greatest people to be president. But as president, I think that a lot of his intentions were good. A lot of the policies he put forth were good. But I think that the Iran hostage crisis really dampened all the great things he did. That could have been seen as historically amazing. I think he would have been a great president. But a lot of stuff that was building up before kind of dragged him down. And oh boy. So now is when the flame war starts in my comment section as we get to Reagan. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Reagan. I think that a lot of his foreign policy with the Soviets was great. It was amazing. It really did stop communism in the world, the spread. However, Reaganomics, I think, has really ruined the society. There's been a huge wealth gap between the very rich and the very poor. The trickle down is still not coming down after 40 years. So I think that's just caused a lot of pain and suffering to the American people. And sorry, I just glitched. What's that? No, not George W. Bush. Reagan. Oh God. Sorry, order got it mixed up. And for that, I think that I'm gonna have to put Reagan C tier, right next to Carter. Maybe they're kind of right next to Carter. I think they're pretty close. But Reagan. Of course, you see my personal biases, which I know there's a lot of Reagan fans I know probably watching, so I apologize. But this is just my personal belief. I don't think Reagan is a good president. Foreign policy is good, but missed the mark, especially in economics. Okay. George H.W. Bush didn't really do too much. He had a big popularity spark with the Gulf War, which is definitely a big accomplishment of his, which might move him up to C? No, not above Reagan. Okay. Yeah, behind there. But really, a lot of his policies weren't very good. He's kind of mediocre. That's why he gets a C stamp. But yeah, seems like a pretty good dude. Really knowledgeable on politics. So I don't think he was that bad. But he doesn't get like a too high of a rating. Okay, so now we kind of get into that modern era of presidents. We have Clinton, did a lot of good stuff, but expanding welfare, taxing the rich, I think was very good. But really, all the scandals, lying under oath, is what is really gonna. Oh my God, this keeps glitching. What's really gonna kill him in the end in the rankings? That I think will make him BC tier, behind a little bit behind Bush, maybe ahead of Bush because he had some accomplishments. But I just think maybe a little, yeah. But I think that's just like unacceptable. Then Don't Ask, Don't Tell is very bad too. So that's why I think I'm gonna put him in the C tier. Would have been great if it wasn't for all the stuff that I can't talk about on the channel. But now we got so these four I'm definitely gonna get. Yeah, that's not gonna be good. So Bush Jr. Of course, he comes in, No Child Left Behind, not a very good act. A lot of his policies were just not good, but really the big thing is the war on terror with Iraq. Really unnecessary war. A lot of lying, a lot of manipulating, which I think puts him in D tier. He's the head of the D tier though. Pretty bad, horrible president. I think he's a little better than John Tyler though, so that's what will keep his mark in the D tier. So yeah, just because of the whole war on terror is very bad. That's probably the main strokes of it. Why he got placed in D tier. So now we got the president who I was born under, Barack Obama. So yeah, I really like a lot of his policies of like Obamacare and like a lot of all that stuff, like the more progressive things of policies of his. Can't get behind the drones and all that stuff, and I just don't think he left too much of a mark compared to some of these S tier presidents. I will keep it in A tier, which I know will get me yelled at in the comment section, but I mean it's okay. We can have a good conversation in there. No need for insults. So now we have the current and former president, who I believe will get. I don't know why Hoover's there. Will get an F tier stance. He reminds me a lot of Woodrow Wilson, honestly. Just really going against diversity, rolling back racial progress. I think was like a big issue. A lot of like against the Constitution, especially in the second term. The first term was kind of just like silly, like COVID-19 was a big thing, like not really taking it seriously was probably the biggest thing in there. The travel ban was kind of that was pretty authoritarian. So I think just really authoritarian president. If you can't tell, I'm pretty decently center left libertarian. So that's why a lot of these like authoritarian guys I just cannot get behind. And so yeah, that's why I can just not get behind him, and I think he's tied with Woodrow Wilson. He gives me a very big Wilson vibe. I think that I don't know if there's any chance that he could be Wilson reincarnated, but we'll go on. So Biden, our former president, he just stopped being president about a month ago. I think he gets not B tier, maybe a little. He's ahead of Carter. Sorry, I'm glitching. I think he's ahead of Carter. I think he's ahead of Polk. Maybe C tier and B tier. I'm going to put him BC. Okay, come on. I think a lot of what he did, like the Inflation Reduction Act, the Chips and Science Act, I think a lot of that stuff was really good. Getting out COVID-19. And a lot of the inflation was global. I don't really blame him for that. But my biggest issue is the whole Gaza situation, which I won't talk about too much. I don't want to get flagged. But that I disagreed a little bit on. But many other people would agree, but yeah, that's my official ranking tier list. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Please keep the comments civil. I know that I'm probably gonna get yelled at in the comments, but yeah, just keep it really civil, conversational, polite.